I had this 5/4 beech wood scrap from another project that I was able to resaw on my table saw, and then I finish it up here with this little band saw in order to make some really nice looking pieces of beech that finished out at about 3/8 of an inch. And I'm going to build a second finger jointed box, this one with a hinged lid, unlike the one I did before that had just a drop-on lid. Stay tuned. After planing the imperfections out of that wood, again, it ends up at about 3/8 of an inch thick, super clear beech. And so I use a little 1/8 inch finger joint jig that does 1/8 inch finger joints, or you could say box joints. And in the case of this box, unlike the other one where it was jointed all the way from top to bottom, this one I only went partially into each board, and you'll see the reason for that in a minute. I wanted the boards on the ends of the box to stick up and kind of capture the rotating lid. So here's an idea of how I finished this one. I only did partially the finger joints, and then in my table saw removed these legs from the bottom, and then shortened these legs from the top down to the thickness of the hinged top. So that's the idea of this box. The side boards are, so to speak, 3/8 of an inch taller than the front and back board. Then if I cut a radius in the lid, on the bottom half of that lid, if I cut a radius in that, and then pin it to those two boards that stick up on the left and right side, you can see I can get a 90-degree opening and closing hinged lid. If I were to round the top and bottom edge of that lid and then pinned it to the box, I could get a 180-degree opening. I chose, as far as so far you could say, to do the 90-degree opening. So here's my lid. I had a little bit left over of that beech, and I had some 1/2 inch walnut, and so I glued up a little panel to use as my lid so that it would have a little color from these two walnut stripes in the lid. And once I had glued that up, I ran it through the planer to level it off. It came out very nice at about 3/8 of an inch. Then I put it in my homemade tapering jig. I've got a video on this. I call it the ugly but accurate tapering jig. Works like a charm. It's just nuts and bolts and a piece of plywood, but it squishes down and holds it nice and tight and square with the world. And so I was able to cut the ragged edge off of this glue up in order to get a straight side to work with to run against my fence, to allow me to get a nice square lid cut against the grain. Then just using the box itself to adjust the fence so that the final width of the lid would meet or match the walls of the box. I just used the box itself for the adjustment, and then with the straight edge that I cut a minute ago against the fence, I'm able to get a nice square lid that fits the box perfectly end to end. Cut the ends off with a miter saw, and there's my box lid. All that is left now is to cut off the wings left and right to the level of the lid, and then drill the pins in. And that's what I did next. Now the bottom of the box was also a glue up. This was just some cedar I had, and it was at about, after it was planed, it was at about 3/8 of an inch. So I took a trim router and I cut a 1/8 inch by 1/8 inch rabbet around the bottom of the box, because I wanted this bottom to sit within the box, and it was going to be stair-stepped, partially in this rabbet and partially along the sides of the box, so that the whole 3/8 of an inch bottom piece would only stick proud of the actual bottom of the box by about 1/8 of an inch. I think the boxes look nice when they look as though they're sort of floating off the ground, the bottom holding them off the ground by about 1/8 of an inch. Rounded the corners of the bottom to fit the radiuses left by the router when I cut that rabbet. Got that to fit tightly in that rabbeted edge, and then took the bottom piece, set my blade about another 1/8 of an inch from the sacrificial fence, and another maybe 1/4 of an inch off the ground, and basically cut a second rabbet now, only this time in the bottom piece itself, so that again, it'd be sort of a stair-stepped fit, similar to the other box that I did last week. Moved that fence over, extended that rabbet now to about 1/4 of an inch depth, and then once it is settled down into the bottom of the box, again, it sits proud of the bottom by maybe a strong 1/16, and plus you have the double surface to glue to that makes the bottom very, very firm in the box, and so there it is, a nice tight fit. So what was left now was to get those two wings, or whatever you want to call the sides of the box, to be close to level with the lid, plus just wanted to plane off the burn marks from the saw. I would ease the outside edge so it would be a little bit round, and I ended up with a nice tight fit just using a small block plane. So now I put in a round over bit, a 1/4 inch round over bit in my trim router, and cut the radius in that lid. Again, I just radiused one side, so I was going to go for a 90-degree lid opening. So I just ran that trim router down that edge, took some sandpaper to try to, again, sand out the burn marks, and just maybe profile this a little bit more. Tried that, test fit it, tried it again, test fit it again. Ended up taking a little bit more off of it using the block plane. It's a low angle block plane, and honestly I was surprised. Of course it's super sharp, which helps. I was surprised at how well it worked against the grain on this top. I was able to take very nice shavings off against the grain to pretty much perfect that little 1/4 round that I was after in that lid. So just with the plane, a little bit of sanding, a little bit of kind of final touch-up sanding, get rid of those sand marks, and I had a radius that I thought would work. Took it over to the drill press, drilled some pins in, used little tiny nails, slid them into the pinholes, snipped them off with the snippers, sunk them in with a punch, and I ended up with a box that had a 90-degree lid opening. If I ever wanted to make this a 180-degree opening, I could just simply round off the top edge of this box. I don't think it's going to matter that much to me. Here's my favorite finish, which is just a shellac, Zinsser shellac. I usually put 2 coats of this on, sand with 220 paper. You can see I've already put inside the box a bunch of plain parts that this box was going to be good for, and in a drawer of loose parts. And here it is, finally in the drawer beside the box that I made last week. And again, more for fun than anything else, but here's 2 finger jointed boxes, useful in the drawer. Again, thanks for watching, and if you've enjoyed this video, please subscribe.